Just bounce it.
At SEC's last year, here she finds herself in a final, diving in front of a lot of people. How difficult does that make it, Cynthia?
Well, I think the SECs and any championship meet like the NCAAs brings a lot of energy, and the divers don't normally dive in these circumstances. The swimmers don't necessarily swim in these circumstances where their family members, the stands are filled. The energy is really high, and you know the team is everything, just like we've heard from the Texas A&M women.
Her first dive is a 50, and again there are 7 judges, and the top 2 and bottom 2 scores are dropped, the other 3 added together and multiplied by the degree of difficulty. That degree of difficulty for Madden was at 2.5. This is a 2.4 for Lizzie Q of LSU.
Lizzie Q is a springboard diver, doesn't really think of herself, and after talking to her coach, he doesn't think of her as necessarily a platform diver at all. She's doing all of her dives off the 5 meter, not the 10 meter, but she is the ultimate competitor. That's why I love watching Lizzie Q dive. She was 2nd on the 1 meter, 4th on the 3 meter, and here she is in the final of the platform diving with no dives off the 10 meter.
Incredible that she made it to the final here, doing everything off the 5 meter. Erin Norton, a freshman from Auburn, from Victor, New York, that's near Rochester.
And Erin Norton, the only freshman in this competition, and she is just dynamite. She's just tiny, 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 but she's got incredible flexibility and, of course, lots of courage. All these women have courage, whether you're diving off the springboard or the platform. These days, the dives are so hard, and to make the final, that means you're one of the best in the nation.
54.6 for Erin Norton in her first dive, her freshman year at the SEC Championships. Allison Maillard of Auburn, a sophomore. Friends and family here for Maillard. She's from Houston, about an hour and a half south of here.
Now she's on the level of the platform that's in between the 10 meter and the 5 meter. It's a 7.5 meter platform. Oh, very nice. Starts out with her inward spinning dive. They do 5 dives and they cover 5 different groups. They do not have to do the 6th group, but they can pick the 5 groups: forward, backward, reverse, inward, twisting, and arm stand. They will do 5 of those 6 groups. Best scores we've seen yet from Allison Maillard.
62.1. Now Madeline McKernan, a senior from Missouri. She and the following diver, Elise Kolonji, have the highest degree of difficulties here in the first round, 3.2. What makes this one tougher, Cynthia?
Well, this is a lot of spinning and twisting, and it's off the 10 meter platform. Anything at 3.0 or above is going to enable a diver that hits the dive, and she almost did it spectacularly. She revolved a little bit past the vertical as she goes in the water. You see her feet come apart just slightly. There'll be a little deduction for that, but it's still a pretty solid dive. She's capable of doing the dive spectacularly, and she showed that off of the platform and in the air.
Taking a little while for McKernan's scores to come in. Montgomery, Texas native. That's about an hour southeast of here, and she cards a 56. Her scores 5.5, 6s, 6.5. McKernan, the Woodlands Diving Club, her background.
And she's with her coach, Jamie Sweeney. He's been at Missouri. He was a diver at Missouri, a champion there. And he is so good with these women. I saw him with the team meeting before the competition this morning, before the preliminaries. And he was just talking to them about the process, not about the results, not about the scores, not about how the dive ends up, what makes the dive work, and having some fun.
Elise Kalanji diving in her home pool.
Oh, she starts out beautifully. And this woman is capable of so much. But Jay LaRue, the coach here at A&M, is being very conservative. She didn't know how to dive 2 years ago at all. She had never done a lot of diving, and she came to school here. She's from France. She came to school here, and he asked her to do a basic maneuver, and she said, "What's that?"
What remarkable growth for Elise Kalanji. 81.6, the best dive so far here in this first round with 2 divers remaining. They get 5 dives. Frida Lim, a sophomore from Georgia, transfer from Clemson.
Frida Lim, a diver from Singapore, is very impressive. Now, I haven't seen a lot of her diving because she wasn't in the SEC last year, and Clemson discontinued their program, so she transferred to Georgia. But she has some great stuff. She just hasn't quite learned how to corral all of it yet.
A little over-rotation there. Yesterday in the men's platform, you talk about how a guy like Scott Lazaroff, so good at getting in the water at vertical. 47.6 for Frida Lim. And now Rachel Robidoux of Tennessee. Robidoux won the SEC platform title 2 years ago, was second last year.
And she's already been third on the 3-meter springboard here, so she's an all-around good diver, springboard and platform. And the top qualifier, and they get to go last. And some people consider that an advantage. Whether it is or not is sort of individual. I noticed her feet flattening as she went by the platform so she doesn't skim the platform with her toes. It's a nice start, not quite as good as what we saw Elise Kalanji do with that high degree of difficulty, 4/10 higher than that dive from Rachel Robidoux.
That 58.8, middle of the pack here through one round. Elise Kalanji had the highest dive. One dive complete for everybody. They'll all have 4 more. Brooke Madden, in her first dive, the sophomore for Florida, had a 70.
She does an inward 2.5 off the 5-meter platform. Again, a lot of these coaches are very conservative with divers off of the platform because if they haven't got a 10-meter list when they come to school, they have to learn it slowly because your body gets so sore from diving off of these platforms. There's a lot of force going in the water when you're going off the 5, 7.5, and 10-meter platform.
Lizzie Q of LSU, Auckland, New Zealand native, Auckland Diving Club, represented New Zealand in the Rio Olympics.
Oh, a nice 2.5 somersault off the lower platform. For her to have made these finals, it actually shocked her coach, Doug Schaefer. Even though he knows she's a terrific competitor, he knows that she's tough and she wants to win everything she's in, but she doesn't train on platform. He said maybe she had done 4 lists off the lower platform this whole year. 4.
That's remarkable.
She's terrific, but known as a springboard diver.
Brent Norton of Auburn.
Oh, that was a missed entry. Unfortunate for Erin Norton. She's a freshman, so she's got a lot of time to figure out all the things that Jeff Schaefer is going to teach her at Auburn. What flexibility she demonstrates, but you see what happens on that line going past vertical, going in the water, over-rotating.
Jeff Schaefer, the diving coach at Auburn, and his brother Doug, the diving coach at LSU. Lizzie Q, the previous diver from LSU. Talk about the nepotism in this sport. 2 brothers who are coaches. Allison Maillard in second after 1 dive.
I think it's incredible that Jeff and Doug Schaefer have been coaching for so long, both at SEC schools. Now, they were at other schools before they came to these SEC schools, but they are amazing, and they're very different personalities. Allison Maillard being coached by older brother Jeff Schaefer, and he's been at Auburn for 19 years now. He is, I would say, a little bit more reserved than Doug, his younger brother. And both incredibly good coaches, have known diving all of their lives.
64.5 in the second dive for Maillard. And now Madeline McKernan of Missouri in fourth after one dive. McKernan, as a freshman, was 20th at SEC's on platform, fourth as a sophomore, 14th last year.
So she has been in the finals before, so she knows what this is all about.
Can she get on the podium?
Well, I think, yes, she can. It depends on her consistency. And I say that a lot about diving and divers, but when they learn how to be consistent, how not to let one unfortunate dive influence the rest of your list, you can develop some really good skills. That was a little splashy, but still proficient dive. Should keep her in the top 4.
67.2. Elise Kalanji is next. She had the top dive in the first round, 81.6. That was a 3.2 degree of difficulty. This one, a 2.7. Second lowest in the second round. She's a nuclear engineering major at Texas A&M.
Oh!
Just engineered a great dive.
She did. She just put that together. I don't know if I'd call it all academic, because there was a lot of talent involved in this dynamic jump, and knowing where the water is, grabbing her hands. Look at the way she grabs her hands right there before she goes in the water, and that just works. She was almost 20 points ahead of the field after the first round.
66.15, the low degree of difficulty. And now Frida Lim, who was the second best qualifier, but in 8th after one dive, 47.6. First Singaporean woman to compete in NCAA Division I diving, that according to what Clemson said last year, a transfer from Clemson after they dropped their program.
Second at the ACCs last year, diving for Clemson. Oh, you know, just a little refinement here and there, and Frida Lim is going to be a force to be reckoned with, because she's got all of the assets. She can jump, she can spin fast, she's got that quickness, and she has flexibility. Watch the way she folds herself in half right there. Sees the water, grabs her hands, and just plays it a little conservative on the entry going in the water, not quite making it all the way to straight up and down vertical.
Pretty wide range there. One judge of 5, some others of 7. Again, top 2, bottom 2 scores dropped, other 3 added together, multiplied by the degree of difficulty. Rachel Rubadou now in 3rd after one dive. Has a lot of catching up to do. The junior for Tennessee.
Whoa, what a nice forward 3.5 somersault. Rachel just put it in round 2. Her first round was acceptable. It wasn't one of her better first round dives, but this dive, I think the best thing is her stretch going in the water and the fact that she holds that vertical line.
That has her in 4th place now. 8's all the way across except for the 7.5. 2 dives down, 3 to go. And back to the top of the order, and Brooke Madden. Again from the 5 meters, she will do all her dives.
Brooke Madden doing a forward 2.5 somersault off the 5-meter platform, lower platform, and working beautifully with Brian Gillooly in only his 2nd year at Florida. But he's enjoying being a part of such a great swimming and diving program.
She was in 5th after 2 dives. Now Lizzie Q of LSU, first New Zealand diver since Barcelona in 1992 to make the Olympic Games. She dived in Rio.
Again, not considered a platform diver by herself or her coach, but a fierce competitor. And again, in college, that's what you want. You want somebody that can do all the three apparatuses, the 1 meter, the 3 meter, and the platform, even if it's off the lower platforms, because they're going to score points for you. And she's going to score big points for LSU, being in the top 8.
She was 13th last year at SECs on platform. Erin Norton, a freshman from Auburn.
Oh, unfortunately, thus far, not having a really good competition. She made the finals, and it's a terrific feat for a freshman coming in to a collegiate season where you really don't know a whole lot about what to expect. You've seen it on TV, or maybe you've been to a collegiate meet, but you don't know what it feels like till you get here with all these parents and all these swimmers cheering for you, as well as the swimming coaches. It's amazing.
Norton will have 2 dives left to try to collect herself and leave here with a good feeling, having made the final at SECs. Allison Mayard, 8th on platform last year at SECs. Last year she was the Southeastern Conference Freshman Diver of the Year.
And she was 7th on the 1 meter, so she's already been in a final here at the SECs, scoring big points for Auburn. And she's going off the 7.5 meter platform and doing a forward 2.5 with 1 twist. That's a lot of dive to do off the 7 meter, and she leaves it just slightly deficient. She was in 2nd place. That may drop her out of the top 2.
Mayard, 4 divers down in the 3rd round. Remember, 5 rounds, so we are halfway through right now. Madeline McKernan of Missouri in 3rd. She is the lone senior in this field.
Oh, she loosened up as she went in the water, arched her back a little bit, and that can tweak your back just a little bit when you go in the water with the arch and not quite tight in your core. Let's see if we can see what happens when she kicks her legs out of the dive. Right there, you see that looseness? And it's so important to have a strong core and keep it tight when you're diving for your own self-preservation as well.
49.5 for Madeline McKernan in her 3rd dive. And Jay LaRue, the diving coach for Texas A&M in his 9th year. His protege, Elise Kalanji.
And he is so good at these details. Jay LaRue was an aerial skier. He was the first skier ever to do a back flip or a back full on skis. First skier ever, and he's from Colorado.
So these days he'd be into slope style, right?
He'd be into a lot of things that he still loves to ski, and I swear he could still do that. He is an incredible athlete, but he's very conservative. Teaching her all these dives. He wants to keep her safe, and certainly what I'm talking about is free from injury.
Just a 45.15 there for her. Kalanji coming back to the field a bit, the leader through 2 dives. 2 dives remaining in the 3rd round. Here's Frida Lim, 6th through 2 dives, the sophomore for Georgia.
And this is why you never ever let one bad dive or even more affect what you're going to do. You don't know what's going to happen, and she didn't have her best dive in round 1. She was in 8th place, but look at that toe point, that stretch. That is a gorgeous dive, and is going to score more judges' points, 9s and 9.5s, than anyone else in the competition, even though it might not be the highest scoring dive because of the degree of difficulty.
She's in 2nd right now with Rachel Rubadou to come, her final dive here in the 3rd round. Columbus, Ohio native, Worthington Kilbourne High School, the 2016 All-American when she was 14th on the 1 meter at NCAAs.
I talked about how consistent she normally is, and she just made a liar out of me. A back 2.5 pike, just over-rotating, and she sits back a little bit too far away from the platform and gets this little bit of a swing going over there. That will hurt her chances of winning this event, the top qualifier.
Drops her down toward the bottom of the pack. Well, if she were a golfer, she stood over that putt for a long time, Cynthia.
Yeah. There's Dave Parrington, longtime coach, 28th year at Tennessee.
And the leader is Elise Kalanji of Texas A&M, 192.9. She has about a 7-point lead on Frida Lim, the Georgia sophomore, through 3 dives. 2 dives remaining for everybody. Maillard is still in it. McKernan is still in it.
I would feel pretty good if I was Elise Kalanji right now, because she still has a pretty big lead.
Good degree of difficulty on her next dive as well. Now here's Brooke Madden, and although she's diving off the 5 meter the entire time, she is right in the middle of the pack in 5th with 2 dives remaining.
When you get down to the last 2 dives, you want to put dives in there that you can count on. They only do 5 dives, so this is round 4. She's in 5th place, and that's a high degree of difficulty dive. It's a back 2.5 off the 5 meter, and it's a lot of spinning and a lot of dive to do from the lower platform, and that's why it carries a high degree of difficulty. Very nice. She was in 5th. She might move up with that good back 2.5 with a high degree of difficulty at 3.0.
Not bad for Brooke Madden, the sophomore for the Florida Gators. And now the next to last dive for Lizzie Q, self-professed not a platform diver, who was 13th at SEC's last year and then 17th at NCAAs.
And already been 2nd on the 1 meter here and 4th on the 3 meter. And I thought she could have won the 3 meter competition. She didn't have a great night, but I know she was not happy about that. And that's the competitor that Lizzie Q is. You put her in a contest and you can pretty much depend that she is going to find a way to do a good job. She missed a little bit in the first round. Not a bad dive at all, but she's hanging in there.
So 7s up to 8, low degree of difficulty 2.4. Now Erin Norton in 8th place after struggling with her last 2 dives. Now she's a freshman. Dad John played water polo at Villanova.
And she's from the same program that Scott Lazaroff came out of to go to Auburn, and he has just been such a standout for the men's program. Was 2nd place in the men's 10 meter. She needed to hold this arm stand a little bit longer. She might not have been considered that she demonstrated control.
The judges will go as soon as you start to lift, correct? Is that when they start judging?
The minute your feet leave the platform to go up into the arm stand, they want to look at the way you get up there. Is it pleasing? Is the overall impression nice? But they also want to see a steady balance. And that was a hair questionable.
It was a better dive than she had on her previous 2. After having a nice dive to begin things, Allison Maillard in 3rd place, trailing by 15 points, heading into her next to last dive. She needs a good one.
She just saw her teammate go, who was in 8th place. She's in 3rd. Oh, her feet came apart just slightly. I can see that from where I'm sitting. I'm not sure if the judges can because they sit right to the side profile. But look what happens right there. The feet separate as she goes in the water. There should be probably a half a point to a point deduction for that feet separation.
It would be remarkable for her to get on the podium.
Yes.
4 of her 5 dives lower than the 10-meter. She was third after 3 dives. Just a 43 there. And now Madeline McKernan in 4th place with 2 dives remaining. She's about 18 points out.
It's a beautiful dive, and she might have held her arm stand a little bit longer as well. She kicked up into it, and it was really pretty. Her lines are gorgeous. And I think if she had held that arm stand a little longer, she might have received 8s on that dive. It was very pretty. The impression was lovely.
Elise Kalanji of Texas A&M diving in her home well here. The leader throughout. Got a 7-point lead heading into this round. She has 2 dives remaining.
I want you to look at the size of her hands. And this is one thing that her coach was talking to me about. She has very large hands. That helps her with her, what we call a rip entry, going in the water without a splash, because you make a hole with your hands and you flatten those palms and you swim your body through the hole that you make with your hands. And Jay LaRue talked about that to me at length, said she didn't know how to dive. She didn't have any experience whatsoever 2 years ago, but she can rip. She can go in the water so beautifully, and one of the reasons is because she has large hands to make that hole to go in the water.
Oh, 52.8 there. Wonder if she held it long enough as she did the handstand, and then she splashed a little bit at the end.
Right, she had a couple of flaws here and there, but I think she did hold the arm stand long enough.
And now Frida Lim, the sophomore from Georgia, in 2nd place heading into her next to last dive.
She could go right ahead if she receives 7.5s on this dive. She was 2nd in the Asian Games last summer, so she's had some success internationally already.
First Singaporean woman to win a medal at the Asian Games in 36 years when she took silver. Taking a long time as well.
Right, there is no time limit, but if the referee feels that you've taken more time than you should, the referee can give a whistle and then you have 30 more seconds to vault yourself into the air. She was fine on that. But the dive didn't end up vertically. Look at this beautiful tuck position. The knees together, the toes together. That is a gorgeous tuck position in the air. If she can put an entry together with that, the sky is the limit. And that would mean 10s.
She had been 7 points back. She loses ground to Kalanji. She's now 16 points back. Rachel Rubidoux, the top qualifier in the prelims earlier today. The final diver here in round 4. And she was 6th through 3 dives.
She has not had a good meet in these finals. I talked about her consistency, and it just hasn't been there this evening. I'm very surprised, but you never know. 2 more rounds to go. She can still be on the podium, 1, 2, or 3.
2nd last year, the champion 2 years ago, Rachel Rubidoux.
That was a nice entry. I think her takeoffs are not quite as dynamic as I've seen them be. She jumps a little too far away from the platform, going out in the middle of the pool somewhat, but she knows where vertical is and she finds it. That'll help Rachel in this round where we've seen some misses.
Climbing the board a little bit, she now trails by about 20 points. 1 round to go. And Brooke Madden of Florida doing all her dives off the 5-meter platform. has been right in the middle of the pack, and she's in third right now. It would be remarkable for her to get on the platform without doing anything above the 5 meter. Kalanji with that 16-point lead.
Elise Kalanji is a great athlete. Didn't know how to dive 2 years ago. It's just amazing to me that she's learned all of these difficult dives off the 10 meter, and she's going to learn more difficult ones because she's still not quite at the place where a lot of international divers are. But like I said, Jay LaRue very smart in being conservative about teaching these dives. Brooke Madden's final dive. Oh, I love her kick out, her unfolding of the legs as she comes out of her tuck position on this. It's not quite vertical, but let me show you what I'm talking about. She kicks her feet out first. There, she kicks, that line is lovely, and she was looking at those feet before she looked back at the water, and that established that straight body line. She's not going to receive the highest scores that she might, but that's because she didn't really nail that vertical entry, but the kick out was just lovely.
Lizzie Q in 7th place, heading into her final dive. Dived at the Rio Olympics for her native New Zealand. Again, the first New Zealand diver in the Olympics since Barcelona in 1992.
Lizzie Q has a lot going for her when it comes to competitive diving. And she's got spunk. I really like her toughness. I like her competitive attitude. And I like her back twister. It's her final dive, and yes, she did all of her dives off a lower platform, and again, not considering herself a platform diver, but scoring big points in the platform competition, as well as being second on the 1 meter and 4th on the 3 meter. Big points.
About 1 point behind Brooke Madden. And now Erin Norton in 8th place. Just a freshman for Auburn, a bright future. Her final dive here in her first SECs.
You see her right arm, hand, wrist taped. Diving can be impactful on the wrists because you want to flatten your palm going in the water. You're traveling off the 10 meter at speeds up to almost 35 miles per hour. So there's a lot of impact there.
And that's her best dive, score of 63.
Only a freshman, and the only freshman in the final. That's admirable.
She had 7.5s, 7s, some 8s. And now Allison Maillard will go off the 5 meter. Only one dive off the 10 meter platform for the sophomore from Auburn. In 6th place with 1 dive remaining.
Wonderful young woman. I can't tell you how fond I am. She's very personable, and you saw Jeff with the mustache. That's the coach at Auburn in his 19th season, sitting beside Brian Gillooly from Florida. And he actually coached, Jeff coached Brian Gillooly, and now they coach against each other in the SEC.
That is something.
Yeah. Brian Gillooly was a coach at the University of Miami. Was a diver at the University of Miami and a champion diver. Unbelievably good.
Great to learn from him. Madeline McKernan in 5th place, final dive, but she is only about 21 points behind. So a good dive here, and she has a degree of difficulty 2/10 higher than the leader, Elise Kalanji, who will be next.
Oh, nice last round dive. The senior, Madeline McKernan from Missouri, saves one of her best for the last, and it is one of her highest degree of difficulty dives also. Can this vault her into the top 3? There's a tie right now between Brooke Madden and Allison Maillard. There's a tie. So she goes ahead. She goes ahead. She will be one of the top 4. She will definitely be one of the top 4.
And now Elise Kalanji here in her junior year at Texas A&M. And the home crowd behind her. She's the leader by 16 points heading into this, her final dive.
Just
way to finish.
Didn't quite stretch those feet all the way going in the water, but this is very composed. And that's what I think of when I watch her diving, composure. And you got to hand it to not only Elise for learning these dives, having the composure, the guts, everything it takes to do what she's done in 2 years, but the coach, Jay LaRue, for taking her slowly and teaching her the right techniques. Fabulous. I think that's your winner.
308.7, yep. And Frida Lim now trailing it by about 80 points.
She could go past Elise. She could. She needs 8.5s. More 8.5s than 8s from the judges, because there's a higher degree of difficulty by 4/10 than Elise Kalanji had. Didn't do this dive as well in the prelims, so I'm not sure about expectations here. Much better than in the prelims, but still slightly deficient. I think one of the things that she is learning to do is use her arms before she jumps and not her body so much as she leaves the platform. That will not be good enough to go ahead of Elise Kalanji.
And so she's in 3rd place right now, Frida Lim. It's Kalanji, and then McKernan, and then Lim. And Kalanji on the verge of being the champion here in her home pool on the platform at the SECs.
And Jay LaRue looking over there at the scores. You know, I just can't say enough about his technical coaching. His wife is a great coach too. She coaches the club program here. But let's look at Rachel Rubin. What does she need?
10s.
If anybody can handle that pressure, it's Rachel.
It has to be perfect to win the title.
Oh, it is
not bad.
It is a magnificent dive, but it's not going to get 10s. And the reason why it's not is it wasn't as dynamic as it could be. It is fabulous, and it will give her
2nd place.
It will give her 2nd place. Unbelievable that she came back from being 6th in round 3. Never give up. Never, never, never give up.
So Elise Kalanji the winner, and a hug from Rachel Rubadu. Let's have a look at Rachel's final dive.
You see, I've seen her do this with a little more dynamic jump, and I've seen her with absolutely no splash. And that's one of the things that the judges remember.